should be not going past an hour.
I agree, Carter. I gotta get kids to bed.
So this is going to be a nice, speedy episode.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to the Live to Give Fans vs. Favorites vs. Famous recap podcast. This is for episode 11 out of 12. The finale is so soon, but more importantly, we have this episode to talk about. I'm Naomi. That doesn't matter. We have with us 2 contestants and 1 amazing production member to talk about this whole episode. Nicole, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. And Carter and Ryan, nice to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk about everything from basically day 3 and the chaos that truly erupted. Also joining us, we have Carter Burquest. Carter, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having us. Excited to talk through this.
Welcome back. Everyone's a veteran of the podcast at this point, which is fantastic. And we have Ryan Van Ness. And Ryan, how are you doing?
I am doing good. This is I'm excited to be here, although this is not the episode I'm excited to talk about.
It's a good therapy session.
Yes.
It is good for that. It is good for that.
Yeah, and we'll talk about my copay off screen. But guys, this is what an episode. I mean, I really never thought that Live to Give could get more complicated than it already was, and yet somehow it became more complicated than anything I've ever seen on Survivor before. Nicole, I want to ask you, do you know about these twists ahead of time and the chaos that Alex and Brandon have planned for these poor, tired, hungry people just trying to win money for charity?
So I did this season, and it was so fun because you're like sitting in the background, like, what are they gonna do? And it's so fun to see, like, to set you guys up. No offense, Carter and Ryan, but it's fun to see you guys like walk into these situations where you're just gonna be completely thrown off. It's fun to see in real time your reactions to the different twists. So I do have a heads up on a few of them, and being on that other side was definitely awesome this time around.
I want to ask you guys, Carter, about the last twist that just happened, because even before this, you had the double vote. How did you feel sort of watching that all go down? And you kind of come out unscathed, you and James, even though you were a big talking point of that vote. How did you feel?
Oh, I thought it was over when I read the twist. When we got to the voting booth, and it's funny. I think they mentioned it in the episode, but like, we were sitting there, and I'm like, "What is taking so long?" I'm like,
it took forever.
Like, why are people?
It was super long vote,
like over 5 minutes to vote. I'm like, this is crazy. And then we got back there, and I read it, and I'm like, "Yep, it's over. Like, I'm done." I mean, in hindsight's 2020. I probably should have tried to take an advantage. I think I was the 5th person to go vote, if I remember right, or pretty close to it. And so in my head, I thought most people maybe would have picked over whatever was there. And I really needed my vote, so that's why I didn't choose to use it. But it was, as a Survivor fan, I was like, this is pretty cool. But then in the moment, I'm like, I already like can't think straight, and this is just like too much.
Yeah, it was actually really hard to like comprehend what was happening. I know after that vote, talking to a few people who were like, I had to reread it. I had to have it read to me because it's so hard when you're in the moment to like understand what's happening when you're at the voting booth and all of this is coming at you, and you have a plan, as I'm sure I'll talk about later, and you're planning on sticking to it, and then everything changes at the last second. When you're in the booth,
I got to be in the booth for everyone, and I have to say, even though it took forever for me being on the other side, I felt like it flew by because it was so fascinating to watch how everyone processed it and how their gameplay came into what they decided to do. So it was really fun to be on the other side and just watch you guys try to absorb it on no sleep and no food.
Meanwhile, I was on the player side being like, does everybody have sunscreen on? Put on your hats. Like, please.
That was a hot tribal. I remember sitting there and just sweat dripping. Like, God, why is everyone taking so long? And I walk around the corner like, that's why.
Oh my God.
Surprise.
I feel like that vote, especially seeing Bergen and Elder go home, I was pretty surprised by that. But when you guys were post this double elimination, coming into a final 9, assuming it was going to be a regular vote, you poor sweet innocent little doves. It's not a regular vote, but you thought it was going to be. I'm wondering, like, Ryan, for you, what your thought process was of, like, who do you want to target next? Is it one of Carter and James, or were you looking, a couple steps ahead of, like, this person, this person, this person? Ryan, where was your head at?
I was really taking it one vote at a time. So the vote at this point was for Bergen. And so when I went up there, I looked at it and thought about it, and it was like, I don't fully understand the risks in this. And so I'm not in a position that I need to be aggressive or anything. So I just played my vote. I voted for Bergen just because that was the plan, and followed through with that.
Yeah. So how was the final 9 vote then after coming out of this chaotic vote for Bergen and pray moment?
Well, so that was when we were in groups of 3.
Well, I'm wondering what you thought was going to happen.
Because going into that vote, we got back to camp, and James, so it was me, James, Derek. James pulls us aside right away and just says, "Hey, I've had a good run. I'm okay with you guys voting me out." And at this point, I've taken his name down off the block twice, and it's like, well, how much am I going to fight for James? I'm fighting a battle to someone who is going to beat me in the end. So I can't keep this fight up, and at a certain point, it's going to make me a bigger target. So he said that, and I was just like, okay. I mean, if you want to go, you can go. But then I was telling people I had an extra vote, and I was going to put it on Derek, just in case he had the idol, because it was suspicious. But then to fast forward with the where my mind was at the time was because I was working with James and Derek. I didn't really want to vote for either of them. I went to the tribal planning to use my extra vote on Derek just to be safe. I told Angie, this is what I'm doing. If it comes back, like, I still want to work with him. It was just, had to do it, trying to lay out the rest of my game from there. And then mid-tribal, all the whispering was all about Lance having an idol, which had nothing to do with my vote at all. But what it did was make me think, well, then James doesn't have an idol. If everyone is so confident Lance has an idol, I don't need to worry about James. And last second, I changed my plan and doubled the vote on James, scared of a second vote on me, which doesn't make any sense looking back on it. But when you're in the moment and you haven't eaten and you haven't slept, it's not so simple, as everyone who has played.
Did you guys have, since I'm kind of in the minority here, did you guys have, Ryan, a plan before we knew about the 3 split? Like, if it just would have been a normal 9-person vote, like, did you guys have a plan on what you guys were going to do, or did you not get that far ahead?
The name that I had heard the most was Lance at that point.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carter, what about you? What were you trying to accomplish before we got this insane twist?
Yeah, I don't know. I was all over the place. Looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? Like, and I don't know if it was, it has for sure the sleep and then just the emotions of the game. I think looking back and coming out of the game, I just came in super underprepared as far as, like, I was kind of going in. I came in kind of towards the end, with my mom and everything. And so I kind of came in like, hey, I'm going to try to do this true Survivor experience. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to plan at all. I'm just going to show up and play. And that was
as you should,
because everybody else had these full-blown strategies. They knew everybody who knew everybody. And then I also had a hard time with, like, balancing, this is a game for charity, but also, like, we are playing Survivor and we want to, like, do good to Survivor. So I had a really hard time balancing that, and then seeing that in other people. I didn't read that well enough in other people of who's playing this game super hard and who's here to just kind of, like, for a charity, I guess, so to speak, and not play overboard. So that was what I was kind of struggling with. And then at that point, after, when we got to 9, I knew I was in deep trouble. I didn't really know what to do. Kind of all my plans were out the window at that point. Looking back, I really should have tried to work more with Bergen. I didn't realize, and I don't know why I didn't realize this in the moment, but until I didn't realize Bergen in the cam vote, the only people who voted the way we were supposed to were me, James, and Bergen. And I didn't really have many conversations with Bergen up to that point, but I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And like, I could have trusted him, but I thought he flipped on us for some reason, which was dumb. Like, he didn't. And so I could have tried to maybe do something more there. And I should have realized Lance was the one kind of driving everything at that point, and tried to, it sounds like, Ryan, that maybe that was the direction you guys were going to go. I should have tried to play that card.
That was the cam vote was actually on cam much earlier than that, because they had actually come to me seeing about voting James out, and I did not want to vote James out. And so they said Jack. And so I was like, okay, because I can't say no to everybody, but I'm working with Jack. So I go straight to Jack and was like, hey, the only other name I've heard is Cam. So they're saying your name. We need to throw votes on Cam. Let's get everyone we can.
Yeah.
And so I actually feel bad because Carter, you and James were ones I felt like I was working with at the time.
Yeah.
And wanted to connect. And I don't know how it did not get to you guys.
Yeah.
Because it all happened so fast. And I know after the vote, you guys were like, well, how did we not know? And I was like, how did you not know? Like, it seemed like you should have been in on it. But it all happened so fast. So. But yeah, that was a switch just to save Jack.
Yeah.
On my part. And then I know Derek was helping push it hard too.
And it was interesting to see everybody's. Oh, go ahead, Naomi.
I was going to say that was the one vote, the camp vote for sure, that I remember going to camp and being like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I could usually figure out by observing what was going to happen at the vote. And that was the one where I was like, I don't know what just happened. I don't know who is doing anything. Also, Alex, I see your comment. I'm trying to find a moment to acknowledge your comment. Two of my favorite players, my favorite volunteer, and Nicole. How dare you be reaching Nicole on the stream, Alex? So offensive. Carter, please. What were you going to say?
What was I going to say? I don't know what I was going to say.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
Carter,
I was going to say something about the cam vote.
Some about cam vote.
Yeah, I don't know what it was now. Yeah, I thought up to that point, and I should have realized whatever, but I did think I was very surprised I wasn't in the know. I thought up to that point that I had people that would have kept me in the loop, but I didn't. Yeah, after that, I was kind of like, okay, that was in trouble here.
That was definitely not my. Well, it wasn't specifically my doing, but it was definitely not my intent. But it's in the heat of the moment, it's hard to lose track of who you've talked to and who's talked to who, because I didn't talk to everybody to tell it. It was like, okay, you tell that person and you tell that person, and you kind of think it all gets worked out. But
I thought this is what I was going to say.
It doesn't after the vote. I was like, what are you talking about? You don't know.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, you and James both came to be like, are you turning on me? Like, no, I didn't know you didn't know. I thought you knew.
The thing I thought was interesting watching back was the big deal about like this alliance that was supposedly me, James, Cam, Serena, Bergen, and Lance. And I don't know what went on behind the scenes. And it's so jumbled because we're only talking 30 minutes on votes here. So I don't remember exactly when this was, but it might've been right at the merge when Lance approached me and James and said, hey, we have an alliance set up. We want you guys in it. It's these six of us. So of course I'm not going to say no, like, yeah, sure. Like, let's work together. Like, that's fine. And it was Lance that kind of put it together, at least in my eyes. Yeah. And so it was very interesting to see back Lance talking about, this alliance, I'm on the bottom of it. When I'm like, you put it together. Like, I don't know what was going on here. So it could have been somebody else could have put together without me knowing it. And Lance was just the messenger, but that was interesting to me. And, if it was a gameplay, it was a great gameplay because he got allies out of us, but then turned it right on us basically immediately.
That was it. It was interesting because I know like during the game, Lance was taking a lot of credit for that vote. And I was always so confused of like, I was like, that was me and Derek that like, I thought did most of that, but maybe not. But that from perspective, that was what happened in me trying to save.
Well, I'll say it's pretty. That vote
then
in particular
watching it back, he was saying, he was like, I just got back to camp. They said Cam, so I voted Cam. And I was like, but that's not what it was. It's so weird, like that nothing lines up on what you hear and what you're seeing on the episodes.
Trying to follow your guys' point and your perspective right now, it reminds me of when you're behind the cameras, and sometimes I don't know if you guys, and me too, when I was in the game, sometimes I don't even know if you guys know what you're doing. Like you'll be talking to someone and you're like deadlocked in with them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they walk away and you guys have these like faces of like, am I with them? Like, all right, like it's so funny, but you just don't know. So when you guys say in the moment it made sense, like I totally understand that there are so many factors that go into it.
Yeah, there's so many conversations that happen, and you have to be so aware of who you're talking to and who they're aligned with versus who you're aligned with, to not kind of give anything away that you might be planning. And so it is a little crazy of all the lies and whatnot that are happening, and then it's like, well, what did I say that I actually believe in?
Yeah, you guys had such difficulty, I think, with the tribe swaps, because I think like what you were talking about, Carter, with Bergen, we forget that Bergen and Cam and were on a tribe together at the very beginning, and they worked a lot very closely together, and so it would make sense that Bergen was actually not a vote for Cam. But there's been like 6 tribe swaps, so you can't remember any of that stuff. And I think
it was hard to keep track.
They play. I remember I didn't keep track of the very first tribe swap, and I was like, I don't know where anybody is right now. I like lost track of every single person, so I started taking photos of you guys when you would swap onto tribes, so I would remember what happened. But it was hard for me to remember, and I was like just a neutral observer, so I can't even imagine for you guys. What I want to ask now about is this moment where basically you find out what the challenge is at the final 9, which is that there are 3 groups of 3. Technically, they're tribes, but really they're all at the same camp. And one group is going to win immunity, and then the other 2 there are going to be 9 votes cast between 2 groups of 3. If you are in the 3 and you're receiving the highest number of votes, you will go home. Chaos, absolute chaos. Alex, you're a lunatic. But from a Survivor fan perspective, I wonder what you guys were thinking of, like, how do I make this work? Also, in particular, knowing what divisions you were in, because, I mean, Carter, for you, like, you'd expressed a lot about wanting to work with Angie, and feasibly you were in an alliance with Lance at some point. So yeah. I can't imagine, and, you know, Ryan, you were in a terrible spot too. Like, this is just a horrible position for the both of you to be in. Carter, how did that feel to get that initial reveal of, like, oh, if we don't win, I'm really in a weird spot?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I knew like, again, to your point, as a Survivor fan, I'm like, oh, that's a really neat idea. And then I'm like, wait, like, how is this going to work? Like, I don't really understand how this is going to work. Like, this is really confusing. And I got to try to, and so initially I'm like, I can't think about it. We got to try to win this challenge. And that challenge was really difficult. We thought hard. Like,
that took you guys forever.
We thought, like, when they explained it to us, we're thinking like these tiles are going to be like, you know, pretty straightforward. But they were like not. They were very complicated designs that need to be put in a different way. And I'm kicking myself in the challenge because as soon as we saw the tiles, we had gone in as a plan, and interested to see what Ryan's plan was, but we had gone in with the plan of like, we're going to try to do 2 or 3 at a time. And as soon as it flipped, I knew instantly, I'm like, that's not going to work. Like, we need to just do 1 at a time and just go slow. But Angie and Lance, without seeing it, and I don't blame them at all, they're like, no, we can do 2 and 3. And so I should have pushed them more to be like, let's just do 1. We would have won. But we didn't. We tried to do 2 and 3, and then we got to the end and we were wrong. And it's like, well, now we got to go back all through it. So that was a tough challenge.
Mm-hmm. I think what made it hard too, Carter, is we didn't tell you guys which one was wrong.
Yeah.
So you had to essentially go through all of them again. And I think that was really tough.
Yep, it was.
That's where I messed up. Was we went through, well, our original plan, which did not go at all as planned, because I think it was 4x5. We were like, let's do 1 row at a time, 5 tiles, which clearly got thrown out of the window immediately. No. But so then we did like, we were trying to get 2, but there was so many confusion signals as it got passed through because of like, oh, is it this way or this way? Or like, And so I laid it out as best as I could. And it felt like it was right at the time. We got it all the way down and it was wrong. So what I started doing was like, okay, well, these two are similar. Let's swap them.
Yep.
And then check it. It was wrong. So I swap them back. And then two more, swap them, check it, swap them back. And I did this a bunch of times. Well, apparently in one of the times, and I remember thinking to myself, make sure you swap them back. And so one of the times, apparently,
Ryan.
I remember this,
and
Ryan.
I did not swap them back, and I did not catch it. And that is where we got it wrong, because then we went through them, and I had one turn 90 degrees. So I turned that one.
Yeah,
I had switched the two earlier and accidentally not switched them back. So that's
also like the
on top of this episode was another not fun thing to watch back.
I gotta say, Alex,
so close. I should have not even been up there. I should have had it.
Yeah, Alex says it doesn't help that as Angie and Carter are trying to work during the challenge, Lance is shouting at them across the field. Angie goes on a journey this challenge. You just gotta watch that for Angie.
I felt so bad for Angie. It was, and Angie, and I felt terrible too, because she was like, I just want the easiest, whatever you think's the easiest, I want to do that. And we thought going in, we're like, okay, just do the middle. And it turns out the middle was the most crucial role, by far. And then I felt bad too, because, Lance was Lance is yelling and Lance doesn't know. So I don't blame him at all. He just wants to get going.
Yeah.
But he doesn't see what's actually at the top. And I felt so bad for Angie. I was trying to just calm her down. We can do it. But it was quite the ordeal.
It was nice. You guys did the challenge justice. It was fun to watch, which for those of us on the other side, Alex can attest this, we lost a lot of brain cells spray painting those tiles. So thank you for enjoying the challenge.
Yeah. It was a good challenge. It was,
that was fun. That was a tough one.
I would be very curious to hear how Jack, Serena, and Elizabeth pulled this out, because it's not that I doubted them, but I was really surprised when they won. And I think it was just I could see all of you guys really focused, and I was like, I don't know who's gonna pull this out. I know all of you guys are really smart. So, and James too. James absolutely crushed. We know the 9-piece grid way earlier in the season. So I was like, I think James might have a good lead on this, but it was crazy. Andy says the flower technique helped Carter, which Carter, you did something right, I guess.
I basically at one point was like, this is taking too long. And so I took a bunch of clovers from the ground, and there was a cinder block, and I laid out all the clovers, arranged them exactly how the tiles were arranged, and then would point to the clover and say, we're doing this one. And
that's awesome.
So, but that was a little too late at that point.
That's crazy. I love that.
But it was hard. I mean, going back to the beginning, I know we didn't even answer your actual question. The way the tribe split up was, I don't know, Ryan, what your initial thoughts were, but I was like, this is not great. This is not ideal split. We have to win here. I know I'm in trouble if we don't win. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that, and then when we got, I was like, okay, if me or James wins, we can figure this out. Either one of our tribes just has to win. And then, because he was the only person I really trusted at that point. And then when we both lost, I was like, I don't know how we're going to figure this out in 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy, just play your idol on the person who's not safe kind of moment. But without it, although you guys really had to get into it, some inklings of ways to make it work that I think is some great strategy in this episode. Ryan, what about you? I mean, what I was so fascinated by this episode was your journey from James is always on your list of people you're working really closely with to, you know what, I need to cut him right now in this moment. And I really admire that you knew exactly when you need to get rid of somebody you saw as a threat. How were you feeling pre-challenge but post-tribe split?
Pre-challenge, post-tribe split. Working with James and Derek, I had mixed feelings, because I was like, I really like these two. I'm working with these two, but if we lose, I have no idea what's going to happen. And then after the challenge, we walked back, and it's just I have no idea what we're going to do. I don't really want either of these two to go, and I don't want to go. And my intent wasn't really for either of them to go. James was the first one to say that he he basically said, I want you guys to vote for me. You guys, which is super obvious looking at it after the fact, but he was the first one to say, like, I've had a good run and all this. And I know at this point I had the merge vote. James was the first name thrown out, and I tried to help put a kibosh to that. And there was the Cam vote was another one that James's name was thrown out, and made sure to stop that. And then it was like, this time it was like, okay, how many times am I going to try to like keep James around? And it was like, all right, I don't want to keep him around too long, and then I'm the target in front of him instead. So it was like, well, okay, we'll go with this, and I'll use my extra vote, and I'll be fine because there's no way I'll be safe. There's no way around it. And so I kind of just went with that. And then obviously I changed my mind last second when you find out information mid-tribal and you don't think it through clearly. But that was kind of where my head was at. It was like, this isn't ideal for me, but how much am I going to put up a fight? I can only fight so much. And this is not the battle I'm going to fight. I have a safety net behind me. And I mean, it all made sense beforehand. And then, yeah, obviously I didn't stick to my plan. So that was a major mistake on my part.
It happens. Nicole, is there anything you had on your mind about this vote? Like, and about, we're jumping into the strategy of this vote. Were you hanging around at this point in time? We had a very busy day, so sometimes we'd be hanging around and sometimes we wouldn't. What were you up to? Were you at camp with us?
So I was at camp a little bit, but I was also sitting back and watching because I feel like this was a very pivotal moment in the game. I feel like this is when that paranoia set in, and it's probably represented the most in Lance, but I feel like that paranoia is a whole other part of the game. And so I feel like that set in, but I am interested in Carter, knowing that James was your ride or die. What is it like to hear that partner, the only person that you just said you trusted in the game, to be like, I had a good run? Like, what part of you is like, really? Like, are you joking? Like, I would stab Jesse if we had gotten that far and he's like, well, peace out, I'm good. Like, what part of you is like, okay, I need to cut him?
A little both. I mean, up to that point, so two things on me and James relationship, I guess. Looking back, absolutely, probably my biggest regret is we didn't talk at all, the whole game, didn't, because we were so paranoid about people, and we just kind of were like, hey, we're gonna work together, and we're just not gonna talk. But it didn't matter. People were gonna pair us together anyways, so we should have tried to put our heads together and put a little bit more strategy behind things instead of just trying to read each other's minds. But also at that point in the game, both me and James had had a conversation. I don't remember when or what, but we kind of were like, we're not going to make it, and that's fine. We both were kind of we're okay. We're good to go when we go. I, kind of decided, I don't remember exactly, but kind of decided, I think it was when it was with me, Derek, Elizabeth, and Cam after the Janicki vote, that I was kind of you know what, Derek and Elizabeth, are just really loving this. They really wanted to win. And I was like, you know what, I really wanted to work with them and help them get as far as I could, and Ryan too, and then just kind of let you guys vote me out at 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it was. And so I was totally at peace with going home. Okay. And when James said that, I was like, yeah, I feel the same way to a certain extent. Not that I'm giving up, but we're okay. But I wasn't upset at him at all. And then I found out he had an idol. So then we kind of let's try to do something fun here. But I knew in that vote, I wasn't going to vote Angie. And I really didn't want Derek or Ryan to go home. And then I was trying to I don't honestly know what was going on with Lance. I'm not sure what he was so upset about, or what, because he said something in the vote too. And I'm not sure what I did or what you kind of saw a little bit. I'm like, I have no clue what's going on here. I didn't turn on you. I didn't do anything.
One of my favorite memories, which is, I'm sorry for you, but I thought you and Lance were together, and when I went down to camp, you guys were sitting by the bonfire.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know you well, Carter, but
Yeah.
you give off this sense that you're just like this kind soul who's gentle, non-confrontational. And I just remember sitting there listening to you, and all of a sudden Lance was like attacking you. And I was like, what is happening? And then I'm like, Carter's not making eye contact with him. Like, are they fighting? So I was there when that had happened, and I was totally thrown off that I can't imagine being the person in the hot seat of Lance.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it was so, because I think my first reaction was, we're walking back, I was like, hey, I don't want to vote either of you. Like, let's just vote for the other three. And I was fine voting for James at that point. Like, I knew he was fine going home, and that was kind of what we had to do. I was like, let's just vote for them, and then let's just let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
I don't know what Ange's thought was on that. Lance was not having that.
I think that from your perspective is a perfectly like logical thing to say. And I think that Lance is such a determined game player. And like he says, and we see it a lot in his specials, he's there to win money. He's there. He's not there to lose. Yeah. So for him, it was like, but you're just asking me to open up the potential for me to lose without doing anything for myself. And I don't think it really computed with him. And I don't think he's that kind of player. So it was definitely like two different perspectives coming to a moment where I was like, it's gonna be one of us. And I was fascinated because I thought about it at first, like, you know, Lance is immediately like, just like, there's almost a way that Lance approaches it where it makes you feel like he can't be on the table because he's so upset with you at the idea that you would vote him out, even though it's logical, right? There's three people, so you might vote him out, but you almost become like, so like, oh gosh, I guess I really shouldn't. And it's like a fascinating sort of like reverse psychology way of getting people not to vote for you. I mean, it just goes to show why Lance is in the final six. Yeah. But definitely a different sort of opinion. 1 and 2 really not coming together. But I don't blame either of you. It is what it is. What I did want to talk about a little bit is I just wanted to mention that Alex also pulled this I just vote for me, guys, I want to go home, just vote for me nonsense on me and Org once. And I clocked his ass. And Alex, you're not smarter than me. It's just all I have to say right now. Ryan, I want to know from your perspective with the extra vote, did you tell anybody about the extra vote? Did you let anybody like Derek know that you were going to use it on James? Or
I guess my plan was not to use it on James, so no, I didn't do that. I had told James that I had it when we were at the final 15, where 3 groups of 3 tribes of 5. I told James that I had it because I thought I might need it there to save him, and then ended up not being the case. I had managed that one in other ways, and then we get to. Like we were at like a minute left or something in that vote. And I told Angie because I didn't want Derek to be mad. If James was the one to end up going home, I didn't want Derek to be mad at me for voting for him. And so I told Angie, I have an extra vote. I'm using it on Derek. I don't want him to be mad just in case. And I also believe, I think it was you, Carter, but maybe it was somebody else I had talked to of like, where do you think the idol is?
Yeah, I think we did.
I was like, I don't remember. Where do you think this is? Because I was very paranoid of where it could be and if it could have been in James' hands.
And I didn't know at that point. Honestly, I literally cannot remember if I knew that James had it or if I did, because I knew James had it very late. So I don't remember. It was too late that we could even kind of come up with a plan, because I do think there was a potential way with James having that idol that we could have used it and potentially both been safe. I don't know if I could have said something at tribal, and then I don't know where Lance got a sheet of paper. He had a sheet of paper that was the idol, and that's what threw me off. And that was so late. And looking back, it was dumb because James even said it. Like, I knew James had the idol, so I don't know. But then Liv to give kind of messes with you, like, well, Liv could put another idol out there, like,
you don't know how many
and so. There. But that was the dumbest thing. I should have known that. And then, I could have maybe made a speech at tribal on like, hey, James is going home. Like, why don't you split up the other pair of Lance and Serena, and then you get both pairs out of the game. Maybe that would have done something. Ryan, you'd know better than me. But
Carter, that would have set off like a fire if you said split up Lance and Serena.
I want.
There was a lot of talk of that. There was a lot of talk.
Nicole, do you remember? Because Carter, this piece of paper was a huge debate on production because Lance had found it from somebody else. I don't really know who he got it from. I can't remember. I think it might have been like somebody left it somewhere, right? And Lance was like, "Can I use this?" And I was like, "I mean, I guess he can. It's somebody else's discarded piece of paper." But we talked about it for like hours on production because Lance was like, I need to know. Nicole, do you remember this?
I do. And I felt like it's fair game. Someone discarded that, and that's part of the game. You got to keep that on you.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
it gets used
disagree.
exactly like that.
No, I'm kidding.
But yeah,
What did
I
you
guess
say?
I've never seen.
said I
somebody-
just-
Oh, go ahead.
I said I
Ryan.
disagree. Just a joke. Just because that's what ended up throwing me off in the last second. Of like, oh, I don't have to worry about James.
Yeah. Up to this point, I mean, I even in Real Survivor, I've never seen somebody have the sheet of paper and not have an idol. It's always been, if you have the sheet of paper, like that's kind of the like, people can make fake idols and everything, but if you have the sheet of paper, like that's kind of like, no, this is real. And so that's what threw me off. And again, he showed that to me with like a minute left, maybe 2 minutes left. Like there was nothing to do, and I should have put 2 and 2 together. It was my own dumb fault, and it was a great move by Lance. But
yeah, I think I was filming you guys for that moment, and I think I just remember him whipping it out, and I was like, "Oh, there it is! Like that's the bomb that sort of drops, and everything kind of becomes chaos." And this vote was chaotic as it is. I definitely think that if you had said let's target Lance and Serena, it would have been even more chaotic. And I have to ask, like, Ryan, when the votes were read for your group, right? You saw that James had an idol and like, oh no. How was that for you?
It's a major regret going like, why did you change your mind last second? Why would you do that? I thankfully my my exit interview was lost because I was not too happy with myself.
And I feel bad, Ryan. I ended up voting for you in the revote because I basically told Derek, like, hey, I'm not going to vote for you. So I voted for Ryan. But looking back, Ryan, you were probably more loyal to me than Derek was. I don't know. Derek did not trust me at all. Like at all. And I don't know what, but I remember Ryan showed me more loyalty than Derek, but I just kind of said I wouldn't do it. And so I didn't, but
I remember Jack coming to me that vote and going like, cause he was between Lance and Carter. And I was just like, oh, I don't want Carter to go. Cause we were like kind of working together and he was just like, oh, well, there's this and that. And I just remember him talking and I was just like, my mind is not on that half of the vote. And I was concentrated on my half. And I just couldn't even understand his arguments. And I was just like, yeah, just do whatever you want. Cause I can't follow along with this conversation right now. My head is somewhere else.
Jack's like a kid in a candy store this episode.
Oh my gosh,
Jack was great. He was a ton of fun to play with, and
he
knew what he was doing. And that was another thing. Like everybody knew that going in, except for me. I'm just I felt like just after watching, like, man, I am such a loser. Like I didn't know anything. All these people knew all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I came in just so underprepared.
We
didn't have as much time.
Too.
I
think that's a good thing too, though.
Yeah, but it was fun. Jack was a lot of fun to play with. So, and honestly, like everybody at a certain point, I felt like, hey, I could play with these, with guys, but at certain, you just have to vote people out. So, that's where it got tough. But
so another question I have for you, Nicole, is I'm wondering, is there something you think maybe Carter and James should have done to potentially save both of them? I mean, Lance, we know, draws out this fake idol that really kind of switches things up, and it's a very verbal tribal council, but do you think that there's something that occurred to you that you might have done differently?
Well, when I said it earlier that, like, people, I don't even know if people knew what they were doing at times. I was actually referring to Carter and James because they didn't talk a whole lot that I saw. And so I was like, did they have a pact going into this? Like, how do they know what each other's doing? However, I think their season really honored the kind of the charity piece of this, and that they really did kind of honor their relationships. So, I mean, yeah, they maybe could have gone up against Lance, but again, that speaks to Carter and James honoring the charity side of this. You could have made it explosive and ugly, but they didn't. And so I think that's really cool too. So, I mean, yeah, they might have been able to, but would it have been pretty? Probably not. So in a charity situation game, are you willing to, do that? Or are you willing to just have some fun?
Yeah. And that was 100% like the exact thought process I was having. Like, and I remember I was, doing a confessional with Hunter, and I don't remember what made, air, what not, but I remember saying like, I don't know if I can save myself, but I can sure try. And I don't know, but I was like, I don't know if it's worth it at this point. Like, yeah. I didn't want Angie to go home, and I was like, I don't know what, if I, kind of go out there, I don't know what happens. And I was like, I don't know if it's worth it. And then credit to James too. Like James, like you see us whispering at Tribal. And the one thing that I knew is James was like, I'll play my idol for you before we went in. And then that's what I was whispering back. I'm like, don't play your idol. Like, it's just let me go home. Like, it's fine. And I think that was the only thing we talked about at that point. And then I think that just drew so much more paranoia, even though like it really had nothing to do. I just was like, don't play it. Like, it's fine. So
it's hard. This round was really hard. And the round after that was also really hard for James, who couldn't be here. But I want to know from your guys' perspective, like who was playing a surprising game to you? Because I think, like you were saying, Ryan, like Derek, Carter, like Derek was, everybody wanted to work with him, but he was not working with everybody. Pretty clearly wasn't working with everybody. Angie was really powering through. Serena was winning challenges. Jack was just having a ball of a time voting people out. Lance was super powerful. And Elizabeth was just like in a tight line, sneaking through under the radar. How did you guys feel about what ended up becoming the final six? And were you surprised by anybody's gameplay? Ryan, I want to know, did anybody surprise you?
I think watching back, Elizabeth has surprised me. She was somebody that I was working with, and she was great to talk to. But hearing her confessionals, like watching back, she's a great player. It was very impressive watching back of how in the game and how in the know she was. So that, I guess that would be my biggest surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like the biggest thing I felt like was just the persona everybody put on in the game. And a lot of it in a good way was an act, to a certain extent of like, hey, I'm just this whatever. So don't underestimate me type deal. A lot of people played that card. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker, and like Derek always was kind of like, I don't have anybody, whatever. And so that told me like right away, like he, I felt like whenever it was, I kind of went on my way to talk to him at one of the tribals. And then, he was kind of like, nobody talks to me and I'm just whatever. And so I felt terrible. And I'm like, okay, like I'll help you. Like, I'm going to work with you here. And like, that was total gameplay. And it was like, looking back, like great move. But I totally bought it as like, he knew to play on my emotions that way and did it. And then a lot of people had that same kind of, I don't know. People were playing a lot harder than I thought they were.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting about Derek of how he was kind of playing that role of people weren't talking to him and whatnot. And he had that moment of he was like on the tribe and he said no one was talking to him. And I remember watching that back. I was in the theater watching that back, and he was like, yeah, nobody even talked to me. And I turned to the person next to me and was like, I talked to him. Yeah. What is he talking about? And then Elizabeth goes, even Ryan, and he's like, and then I heard about his gameplay of like how he was trying to play under the radar. I was like, okay, makes sense. But at first I was like, what does he mean? He's not, no one talked to him. I totally talked to him.
Yeah.
Derek
I talked to him about how he didn't think he played the role of kind of that no one was working with him so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
He was very smart and strategic with that.
Totally.
Before my season, Brian, who won the season prior to me, he said to me his only advice was be the person that everyone tells their information to, but don't be the person who gives up the information. And I think Derek did a really great job of that. Everyone was talking to him, but you would never guess it if you were talking with Derek, because he played this person of like, well, I'm not really sure. But meanwhile, everyone was talking to Derek.
Yeah, I think Derek
was very smart.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with you guys were on a tribe with him where he was very clearly going to go home if you guys had lost. The super alpha tribe with Serena. But that was this moment where he was really going to go home should you guys go to tribal. And I think maybe that has some influence. It's really funny how moments where you're with somebody where they have no power influence you to think that they continue to have no power, when in reality, this core 6 has formed and has made it to the final 6, which is hilarious. I mean, Ryan, I would say it's a core 7 because I think you were a decent part of that as well. And it was just like madness to see Derek gain so much steam. I was really surprised. I was really surprised at Elizabeth as well. I thought that Elizabeth was going to be a merge vote for sure. I just assumed that people would have no connections to her, but everybody loves Elizabeth. She's so nice. I want to know as well from you guys, knowing that there were people like Serena who had made it to final tribal council before, and people like Lance has won prior reality games. Jack is experienced in these reality games. Did that ever cross your mind when you were thinking about voting for them, or even James winning Live to Give in the past, right? Did those things occur to you in the moment in the game?
Yeah, they definitely did for me. I knew James was a huge target from the get-go, and that's why I wanted to work with him right off the bat. He was the first person I reached out to. Even when I didn't need to talk to anybody yet, I went straight to James because I wanted to work with him, just because I knew he was a big threat. And I wanted to play that game where I was kind of hiding under the wings of a bigger threat with the meat shield. And
speaking of a bigger threat, James, are you here with us? Almost. He's getting.
I am.
Hello.
Just the camera's not working. Hi.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We are so great. We're just talking about how big of a threat you were.
We've been talking about how much we hate you, James.
Okay, Carter.
Well,
no, all good things.
It's so nice to have you here. I just want to ask for you, we've been talking about our thoughts about the Final 9 twist. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about? I mean, we'll get to your elimination, but the big twist that you saved yourself in, how was that for you?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I told Ryan this, I think, after I was voted out, but that entire Final 9 round, when we had the immunity with the 3 groups, I for sure thought Derek and Ryan were throwing it, because I think it would have benefited them. They didn't know I had the idol. So I assumed that they knew that out of the 3 of us, I would go home. So for them to win, there was no point. So the whole time I was like, they're throwing this. They're absolutely throwing this challenge. So I thought that twist was actually really interesting. And I really thought it was a great twist for Live to Give.
Yeah.
Awesome. And James, for you, that idol play, Carter was saying he really believed that you were ready to go home and pack up your things. How was that for you to really sort of get the gag on everybody, including Carter in some ways?
I was forced to kind of play it that round, right? Otherwise, I absolutely would have gone home. Obviously, I wish I would have found a way to not have to play it, because then I would have probably been safe the round got voted out. But I'm really glad that I got to at least have a successful idol play before my departure from the game.
It's true. And that idol, let me just say, I had that idol in my pocket, and Cam came up to me and was like, "Where's the idol?" And he was joking, but it was in my pocket, and I was waiting for everybody to leave so I could hide it. And James, you found that so quickly. It was crazy. I put it, you guys went back to camp, and they're like, "James has it." It's like,
well, I think it was because on the way back, when we were walking back in a single file line, everyone was talking, and I was like, I don't want to be distracted. Obviously, there's going to be an idol hidden, so I wanted to make sure I was really alert to my surroundings. So I kind of walking back to camp was already looking for it. So when when my eyes saw it in the tree, I was like, all right, now what can I do to distract people? Because it was in our line of sight to make sure that nobody sees it. So I figured if I go fake pee on a tree, no one's going to know that I'm actually grabbing the idol.
James, you tricked me because I was following you at the camera, and then I looked up and I'm like, oh shit, he's peeing. Like, now I'm just the creepy photographer. So I like, turned and went the other way. You totally fooled me.
Oh dear. I've had that happen before, and people were just using the bathroom, which is just me being a creep. Well, James, I'm wondering from your perspective, what would the ideal elimination have been in the final 9? Like, which 2 people would have gone home that would have been best for you?
I think Derek. I didn't want Ryan to go, but there was something that happened that round where Derek came up to me and made it seem like he was trying to like proactively keep me. He's like, if there's a way I can keep you, I would love to figure out a way. Where Ryan, you know, he said, I have no other choice but to vote you. And I don't blame him. Like, that was the smart choice to do.
That
Ryan,
was all that was all coming from you saying, you know, my time's been up, and, you know,
100%.
That's 100% where it came from. So,
and then from there, though, Derek kept coming up to me even after that conversation and was like, I want to keep you. And in my head, I was like, does he really? But I mean, if he's actively trying to show he wants me to stay, then when I had to revote between him and Ryan, I felt like, well, Derek seems like he actually wants to go a little bit further with me. So maybe keeping Derek is the better option. But ideally, like, had the round gone differently, I think Derek leaving and Lance leaving would have been more beneficial to everybody, honestly.
It definitely would have opened up the group, because as we see, the final 6 is the final 6. And James, it's so fascinating. I want to talk about your elimination now, because obviously you needed to win immunity. This was a tough challenge. I wish this episode kind of was titled I Miss You, Macy, because that was the funniest moment I've seen in like every single episode. Oh, Jack. But James, for you, you had sort of said, oh, I want to vote for Lance. You declared that you were going to vote for Lance, which I think is the correct move. Say who you're going to vote for. Pray that people jump on board. But Lance was surprised about this and was actually talking about how he maybe wanted to work with you, and he was thinking about targeting Derek. Did that ever really occur to you? Because I was pretty surprised to hear it as well in the edit.
It's hard to say, because, you know, that round we weren't allowed to really strategize. We weren't really allowed to talk unless it was a public forum. And I feel like had we had the opportunity to go back to camp, I honestly think the vote could have gone differently. I really do think I could have found a way to survive that round, just because I think everyone kept using my relationships against me. And I feel like I sound like a broken record at this point. But the last powerful duo that I feel like was, perceived at this point in the game was Lance and Serena. And I was kind of like loosely working with Jack, Angie, Derek, and Elizabeth, but come to find out they were, loosely working with everybody in the game, but they made me feel like I was actually with them. So I feel like I would have found a way to say, hey, let's just split up those 2, and then you guys can get rid of me next. But you need me as an extra number and an extra vote to split those 2 up, because I felt like potentially those 2 would go all the way. Now, whether that happens from this point forward, I guess we'll find out in the finale. But that's what my argument would have been.
Definitely. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough how messy the final 6 vote is. So everybody definitely needs to tune in. But it had a lot of. Go ahead.
I also will say, like, the final 7 round, I think it was very unique. Like, I do appreciate it's a live tribal, no strategizing, and everything is kind of like air your dirty laundry. Like, let's make this a public strategy session in front of the jury. I think that's brilliant. I think it's unfortunately a little too late in the game to follow up from a majority says immunity challenge. I think that challenge is designed for whoever's at the bottom is going to go home regardless. So I feel like even if I feel like I was screwed regardless. You know what I mean? Because I was at the bottom. There was no way with how that round was designed.
That challenge is impossible.
Yeah, that challenge is designed for the person at the bottom to be screwed.
Yeah, the only way that challenge really works in a way that somebody could underdog win it is if you just do it on a point system. I was actually totally shocked. I think I was like mentally checked out and I went home before this challenge happened. No offense to you, James. I was very sad that you went home. But I was shocked at the way that if you get it right, you're safe and then you can't be chopped. because that almost like when somebody gets it wrong and they're just auto eliminated, it's
Right.
really sort of like oh shoot, like they're just gone. And I really love a point system touchy subjects. I feel like that always works best when everybody can answer all the time. Was there any James that you were surprised that you received? Do you remember any of your awards that you received during this challenge?
No, but I think looking back on it, when I was rewatching the episode, I was texting Alex and I was like, I'm actually surprised. That challenge is actually really interesting to me because we're taking the survey. So we're putting our answers. And usually like what someone might put for their answer is not the answer they guess for the majority. Like, I feel like almost the survey isn't even necessary. You might as well just go straight to the source and have everyone write down on a piece of, on the dry erase board what they genuinely think. And if they're in the majority, then they should have the opportunity to take someone's life out of that challenge. The survey to me kind of almost seems pointless at the end of the day.
I think it's also pointless with a smaller amount of people.
True.
It really narrows down the options. When you do this with like 10 or 11, then it gets really messy. But it also leaves a lot of spots for people to hide. I was really shocked that a lot of people were so forthright to be like, oh, I think Lance is, playing the toughest game and calling people out like Derek, because it just really shows your cards. Ryan and Carter, I can't remember. Did you guys get to watch this challenge or did you just pop in as the jury afterwards?
I think we watched from the side.
We got to watch it. Yeah, we got pulled aside. I grabbed some food and sat down and on the jury and watched it.
Yeah, they definitely were watching because that question that was like, who's the most screwed if they don't win this immunity? Like, everyone laughed because everyone knew it was obviously me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole jury knew as well. That was the talk at the jury of like, well, James is screwed at this point.
I'm screwed.
Right, soon, right away.
James, I remember before you jumped on, we had talked about how your season did a really great job of representing that Live to Give is for charity, because you guys were just so kind and caring to each other in the midst of a game. Right. And I remember for touchy subjects that there was a specific question on there that you refused to answer. And I remember you coming up to production and just saying, I don't feel comfortable answering this. And it was probably a question that was perceived negatively. I think it was something like, who do you hope to not ever see again? It was something along that line where it wasn't a positive question. And I remember you coming up to production and being like, I don't want to answer this. And I had so much respect for you in that moment, because that's a question that I would have felt super uncomfortable answering too. And it wasn't anything that really like spoke to the game as far as charity wise and lifting each other up. It was like totally a tear down question.
And I mean,
you saying
that's
something.
what I did in season 2. So I felt like, why would I not say it again? In season 5, like, it's not something I'm comfortable sharing. And to be fair, there were some questions even during the actual challenge where I intentionally wrote my name, even though I knew that wasn't the right answer for the majority. I just didn't want to pinpoint anyone in particular. So in a way, I kind of threw my own hat into the fire with that immunity challenge by not answering honestly. But I also just didn't feel like it was right.
That was also strategy to throw your hat in or throw your own name in. And yes, Alex, you do love the messy, dramatic.
Tear downs are sometimes necessary. Okay, Alex. The torment you put these people through. Well, guys, just to sort of come to the end here of this pod, because it's so nice to have all of you. I'm wondering from your perspective, like, what was something you were super proud of accomplishing during this season? I mean, especially for you, Ryan, as a fan, this being your first time to play. What was it like for you to play? What are you proud of and happy that happened?
I guess I'm really proud of my gameplay. I think I went out there and I gave it my all. I proved, although it did not show in the last episode or many of the other episodes, I think I proved that I have an idea of what I'm doing and I can strategize with some great gameplay layers. And the other thing I'm very proud of, and most proud of actually, is what I raised for charity. I took second place in charity. I was lucky enough to get the biggest check of the check in the golf ball challenge. And in my fundraising time, I also, on top of money, which did not count for this competition at all, but since my charity was Minnesota Milk for Babies, I also raised over 1,000 ounces of milk, which did nothing for this competition. but it is something I'm very proud of.
That's
because
amazing.
That is a lot. That is a lot of milk, and I'm really excited that it made a big difference monetarily and milk and all sorts of different things. And that's definitely what I'm most proud of in this game.
Awesome. What about you, Carter? How was this experience for you this time around?
It was a ton of fun. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. Like, no hard feelings to anybody. Like, I had a blast, and like looking back, it's just fun to, see what everybody was thinking. From what I'm most proud of, I mean, I went in, and I said it earlier, I just have a really tough time with Live to Give, balancing the love of Survivor and wanting to do justice to Survivor, but also the fact that this is for charity. And people like Ryan, like, you put so much work into this, and especially for me, who like came in, as my mom kind of did all the really hard work. I didn't really have to do any work per se to be in. So I really want to do her proud and make sure, like, hey, I put my best foot forward from that standpoint. And so I think I wasn't perfect. There's probably some things I'd do differently if I had to do it again. But I think for the most part, like, I did the best I could, and I made it a lot farther than I was expecting to. I was kind of expecting to get voted out pretty quick, just knowing my threat level. So going as far as it was fun, and I just had a great time, and it was a great, like, I don't know. It was a tough 6 months, so it was a great, like, just kind of release, I guess, to a certain extent.
Definitely. And James, what about you?
I think kind of what Carter said too. It's the fact that I got a lot farther than I ever expected to. And I think it was just, I got really lucky with every tribe shakeup. I didn't have to go to, tribal until practically the merge. And then from there, I just, I told myself I really had nothing to lose by coming back. I knew I was going to be a target. So I really just wanted to have fun. And so what I said, the tribal council, I was voted out at, like, I'm not there for a long time. I was there for a fun time. I had a lot of fun. It was great to, make new friends. I loved being able to, like, reconnect with Carter and do this experience with him again. And I'm just proud of everyone who's involved. It was just a really wonderful weekend. And I'm glad that I made it, if not to the last day, as far as I could up until the day before the last day.
Sure.
So.
Sure. And I thought your sentiment, James, when you were voted out was very nice. Of like, it was such a privilege to get to spend time with all of you during the pandemic and have such a fun, exciting moment happen during a time where we hadn't been able to hang out with people for a very long time.
Yeah, I feel like it was the perfect event to kind of like find a new normal and like break back into those social situations without feeling super stressed about it. And so it was really nice to kind of have that social stimulation for such an incredible cause. And you could tell that everyone just really wanted to be there, which made it that much more fun.
Now, James, you haven't been on this podcast before. Can you tell us a little bit about the charity that you were raising money for?
Yeah, I was competing for Flight, which I didn't really know it even existed until I was doing like some last minute research. But it's a foundation that helps provide resources for schools in underserved communities so that they have opportunities to take educational trips internationally. So I actually had been talking a lot with my charity ever since I've been back from the Live to Give weekend. And I was able to hear that the money that I was able to raise went towards a trip to for a school from New Orleans, oddly enough, to go to, I believe it was the Dominican or Puerto Rico, one of those two. But that was really cool to know that that specific amount of money that I was able to raise went to that trip over Thanksgiving.
Amazing. That's so cool. And Nicole, just to wrap it up, like for you, what should we expect from next week's episode? You and I saw it, but I want to hear your words for sure.
I'm sorry, for the next few episodes?
For the finale. Well, the next few episodes. Nicole, there's only one.
I suppose there is. I think one of the things I'm most proud of for this season, and Alex is going to hate me because I'm promoting being nice, but I loved the gameplay in this season. And you're right, it's that balance of honoring Survivor, but also those real relationships that do happen. I would say that look forward to watching how people allow themselves to be vulnerable. It's really cool to see kind of their the evolution of their stories and their person as a whole. I think that was one of my favorite parts of this game, is just watch those people like really get that confidence as they get the momentum going.
Yeah, you guys were all great jurors, by the way. I can't wait for everybody to tune in to see what happens next week. And anything else to talk about before we say goodbye to the folks at home? Anything else on anyone's mind? You guys all played amazing games, and I'm so happy to have you here tonight.
Oh, just thanks again to the production team and Naomi and Nicole and Brandon and Alex and the hundreds of people that make it happen. It's not possible without you guys. And like, I had an amazing weekend. We raised a ton of money, and it's not possible without all you guys. So thanks for that. And looking forward to the event next year.
Oh yeah, well, I'll hang out again next year. Awesome. Guys, well, thank you for being here. Shout out again to Alex. And guys, this was awesome. The finale will be next Sunday, but I believe it is going on YouTube next Monday. So you should go in person to the theater to go watch it with these guys, which is exactly what I can't do this week. But guys, thank you for being here. James, Ryan, Carter, and Nicole, y'all are amazing. And it was so nice to meet you this summer. And I will see you again next summer. Make sure to subscribe to Live to Give on YouTube and everywhere, and help them. They're doing it. Are you guys still doing the pizza fundraiser right now?
It just ended.
Yeah. Well, keep your eye on more fundraisers, more opportunities to unlock special content, and most importantly, get ready for next season. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Say bye to the folks at home. Bye, everyone.